Morning, guys. Just one quick video about my recent tattoo session. As you can see, I've got the camera back a little farther than normal so that I can show off my first session on the new eye, the revamp of the eye. We started blacking out the white around the center of the eye, and that's actually a lot of work in there. We didn't get all of it done just because the skin started getting kind of resistant. A couple hours, we were about 3 hours in, the skin started getting pretty resistant to the ink. It started welting up pretty quick, so we're gonna definitely have to touch up this center, and we're gonna have to bring the black over here into these teeth and kind of rework these teeth because we made the teeth quite a bit more crooked too. If you can see, they have some notches in them to give them some more definition so they're not so just flat. We reshaped the center quite a bit, but yeah, as I said, the center itself will need to be blacked out again to keep the same darkness as everything around it, because Rick's black is quite a bit blacker than the old black that's in there. And of course that black hasn't been done in 2 years. That center has been blacked out twice though. It is pretty matte. It's just anytime you put new black next to old black, it looks a little bit faded. But yeah, I'm really liking the black as opposed to the white background that the eyeball had. Now, I say white and I mean white. That whole white of the eye, none of that was negative space. It looked like it was negative space, but there was drop shadow done with gray shading, and there was white ink done in there to pop the contrast more, where most of that white ink was pretty scarred up. So most of this session was working over old traumatized scarred work. I had a guy ask me recently on here to talk a little bit about tattoo scarring and how it happens and what to watch for, all that kind of stuff. A lot of times tattoo scarring isn't necessarily obvious to the eye or like to feel as you brush past it with your finger or something. A lot of times you're only going to know something's scarred once you start working on it and you feel that kind of texture under the skin almost, because some scars don't leave a mark necessarily that you can see. It can actually go deeper into different layers of the skin. So, and to answer another part of his question was, he asked about if scarring is inevitable the more you work on something. And I don't think scarring has to happen. I think that scarring is often caused by inexperienced artists or artists who are in a hurry. It can be caused by digging too deep. You can have your machine moving, like the needles moving too quickly and your hand speed not moving fast enough for that needle speed. That can tear up an area. Or you can overwork something and that can cause scarring too. Or say you're doing color blends, which this eye has been color blended now 4 times. If you put too many colors over an area, and you say you shade the same area more than once with color, say even up to 3 or 4 times over to blend colors, some tissue can't take that much blending. And I think that can cause some inevitable scarring. Like that's what happened on, for example, my old right wrist tattoo. We got all kinds of crazy scarring in here because we did so many different colors over top of it. I will quickly show off the healing rows, the dots, and the shading. So this is almost fully healed now. Looks really good. I'm actually surprised how good that held up. And because of how well that held up, I've decided I'm not going to do the filigree that I thought I was going to do on my neck. I had that idea because I thought we'd have to go really simple and hope that we could get something as striking as that to show up, like these here. But what I've seen with this hand tattoo is that we can go a little more bold than I was thinking. So people who were fans of my old throat and neck tattoo, the rose mantle that I had, will be excited to hear that I'm actually creating a version of that again to go along, I guess, with the tentacles that I'm recreating on my lower torso. I'm planning on doing black roses, starting kind of right at the collarbone and going up to my throat. They'll be similar to this, but not quite the same. More similar in method. We'll be using dots and some shading, but first we'll be aligning them. So that'll be the next session we do. We'll be lining out, hopefully, all 3 of the roses I want to do in the front. I think there's going to probably be about 5 altogether because we're going to have 2 wrap around to the back of the neck. So those will be shaded in one session, lined in one session and shaded in another, because especially now with my work being multiple generations deep, the skin welts up pretty quickly when you run a line over it. So, and black on black is pretty hard to saturate anyway. So you really want to have clear sight of what you're doing. So if you're doing black on black, I would recommend multiple sessions for big projects like this, and just having more vision than ever about where you're going with something and how it may not start the way it finishes. It's more now than ever, we have to be really careful about things like that. Overworking things, and especially in areas that have already been worked pretty hard in the past. But yeah, this was a really painful session. I'm not going to lie. It was one of the more painful ones I've had in recent memory. Now, that's not to say it's anywhere near the top, but I've been working pretty easy areas lately. I've been working on my arms and stuff, and even a lot of the legs were pretty easy. The chest re-blackout I found pretty easy, all that stuff. This, more particularly because all that white ink was very, very scarred and thick. It took quite a beating to cover. And as my tattoo artist said, the edge of the teeth is almost like outlined in scar. There's barely any ink in it, even though they've been tattooed several times. Once something is severely scarred, it's really hard to get saturation in it. So more than ink, the teeth are lined with scar, is how he put it. So yeah, that was fun. Always lots of blood when you're working on scarry areas. So I was pretty lightheaded after the session, and I actually had to work right after the session. This has been almost a day since the tattoo, and the best part about getting something on your torso, or like your stomach or chest or your back or anything like that, is though it can be a bit of a painful session, it's a really easy heal because it's not a moving part. So like basically once it's over, the worst is past. Where with an arm tattoo even, I find that you do a lot of playing around that area. Like especially if you work with your hands like I do, you end up almost nursing that area and making sure that it's okay, and like not bumping into anything, or like not carrying too much, or like any of that kind of stuff. You have to be a little more careful. But with like a stomach or chest piece like this, you just put a shirt on and it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. So I really enjoy the depth that we get here. Kevin at the shop said, for example, it actually looks like the eye is doing what it was always supposed to look like, where it looks like it's coming out of my body now, like it has a depth to it, where before it looked like it was sitting on my body with the white frame. So I will say, when I got home, I had to look at it in the mirror for quite a while, and not because I didn't like it, but because this has been such an iconic piece for my Instagram and my YouTube and stuff for so long. To have such a huge change to it, it took a minute for me to like size it up and go, was this a good idea? And I think it was, and I like it more. Like even looking at it now, I love it. But because it's become such a piece that I've been known for, it's a difficult one to change without reflecting over. This is one of the last big pieces I've kept from my first suit, and it's gone through, I'd say, 4 distinct looks over the years, because it was done originally, and then it was touched up a couple times to look the way it did, and it had a keyhole here, and it matched the key up here, which also got a little more defined yesterday. And then after that, I had Lee take out that keyhole because I didn't really like it, and Lee redid the colors so that they were more red and less orange because I didn't want them to be super orange. But then after Lee did it, I found it was a little bit bright, so I had Rick go over it with some more black and darker reds. That was last year. So then that was the eye, and we sharpened the teeth again. And then this year, to keep in the spirit of growing, as I said in my meaning of my eye tattoo, and how this tattoo has to stay relevant or it has to go, I was finding the teeth were getting really lost in the design. And I was finding that the eye itself looked a little too happy and a little too bubblegummy. I wanted it to look more demonic and more a part of this suit if it's going to stay. And so that's what we've done. We added a lot more black, and that should surprise no one. Rick is looking at the center of this eye and wondering if he wants to put something in the center. But I think just solid black. I don't have any great ideas for that, and I'm not really interested in that idea. But he did say while he was working on this, he's starting to get an idea of the creature that this eye belongs to. It's always good when your artist is starting to really understand and gel with a project, because it makes it easier to flow then. Like Hugh now wants to add like a lip to this lower area. And he's got some ideas for up here too. I'm sure we'll get more into that. But obviously, as I've said, I want to do the tentacles to match this. And it's just about getting there, because immediately next I want to do the roses around my neck and stuff. But this, as I say, is going to need one more session, I think, probably, just to reblock this center. And then I actually want to just change around the bottom here too. The bottom of the black here, I think, should be brought out a little more. But areas like this can only take so much trauma in a session now, especially being done so many times. So that'll be probably a month from now or so we'll hit it again, because what I want to do is in another 2 weeks we'll do the outline, and then another 2 weeks after that we'll shade, and then we'll probably outline some more on the back, and then we'll probably come back down here, and then that same day I'll probably re-white this moon, so that'll be a second pass on this. So I've got all kinds of balls in motion, but they're all little self-contained new projects, and both me and my artists are much more excited now to be doing this work than either of us were the blackout itself by the end, just because as much as I love the blackout, when you just do blackout every day for weeks and months on end, it does get a little bit tedious, but you have to understand the greater goal you're working to. And now we have all kinds of new prospects to imagine and new ideas to put in play. But yeah, so there's the eye. And I'm really curious to see what the reaction of my Instagram will be to this when I put it up and show it off, as it's been a white background for so long. I should say that one last thing about this tattoo, it looks like less work than it is. When you're just blacking out a big area, like say my chest here or like my bicep, you can just use a 27 mag or whatever big mag grouping you want. But when you're working on a blackout project like this, where you have to get in between tiny crevasses and little nooks and crannies, like in between each tooth, you can't use giant mag groupings, so you end up using much smaller needle groupings like 12s and 9s and stuff. And it just ends up taking a lot longer to get that in there without, bumping into other stuff you're not trying to cover. So there was a lot of needle grouping changes, and sometimes smaller needle groupings can do a little more trauma than like say a 27 mag where you're getting coverage quicker. and it definitely prolongs the pain. So this looks like less of a session than it was. It's a lot more detail than a normal blackout would be, for example. Like if I were just to have blacked out this whole eye and all the teeth, it would have been over half as fast and it would have been less painful overall too. Although there may be more bruising afterwards or sunburn feeling. Anyway, that's about as long as this needs to be, I think, and I think I've gotten over everything about this. I hope you guys like the new eye. I'm loving the black. It did take a minute to see it at the end and understand it, but I think it's the way to go for me. Long term, I'm very happy with how things are shaping up, and I hope to hear what you guys think about this. All right, have a good day.